Hey folks, Rob Ager here, and today I'm going to be doing something quite unusual for my channel, something new really. I'm going to be doing a video game playthrough commentary, and the game of choice is Skyrim. Now, I'm going to try and do things quite differently to how the video game commentaries are normally done, because I've looked at other people's video game commentaries, and most of it is just how to beat this part of the game, how to achieve that, how to find this treasure, how to get more out of the game, and that kind of thing. Other ones is just people doing these over emotional reactions. Oh my God, this happened, blah, 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 blah. That kind of stuff I find really dull and boring. I'm not really into it at all. But something I am extremely interested in is the psychological appeals of video games. And there's not really much material out there that talks about this. I've noticed that a hell of a lot of the academic material that talks about the psychological aspects of video games tends to be written by people who don't play video games. There's a big difference from me in that I have been playing video games on and off since I was like about 7 years old when the old Pac-Man games came out. The very early video games, Centipede and stuff like that, way back in the late 1970s and early 80s. I've played video games through most of my life, and I actually worked in video games as an animator at one point in the early 1990s. This was just before the 3D revolution in video games. So this approach to the psychological appeals of video games isn't going to be from one of those snobbish people who just looks down on video games and looks down on gamers. None of that here. So if I say anything negative about the human condition in terms of why we play video games, that's not meant to be a direct insult to you or any other gamer, because any negative things that I say about that would equally apply to myself. Okay, so what else? Another handful of precursors before we actually get into the game. First of all, why did I choose Skyrim? Well, I've been a big fan of the Elder Scrolls games ever since I played Morrowind back in the 1990s, I think it was, or the early 2000s. I can't remember exactly when it came out. But Morrowind blew my head off when I first played that on PC. And of course, I've played Oblivion and Skyrim since then. Morrowind is still my favourite of the Elder Scrolls game series. Though I do appreciate that the combat system in Skyrim is a hell of a lot more enjoyable and playable than it was in Morrowind. But yeah, Skyrim has become so massively popular, and there hasn't been another Elder Scrolls game since then. And it's still played to death all over the world, and the modding community is absolutely massive on this game, and they're still massively active. And so clearly, Skyrim has some sort of massive appeal that goes even further and reaches far more people than does Morrowind, even though Morrowind's my favourite of the series. Alright, so what else? Well, I'm playing Skyrim on PC here, and I did have this game modded to hell. I think I had about 80 mods on it, and I was playing it through with that, so you get all kinds of new locations, new castles, new dungeons, that type of thing, and all kinds of new creatures and all that. But with the amount of mods that I had in the game, there was occasional crashes, and I'm not really sure whether my system would handle recording the game footage at the same time as playing Skyrim with all of those mods. So I've decided to just reduce the mods, get rid of them, and just play the vanilla game, and just take you through it from there, because the mods, I mean, they'd be a little bit of a distraction, because we're talking about the psychological appeals of Skyrim, the base vanilla game, and the mods don't really contribute to that. I mean, we could talk about the certain appeals of the mods, but that's a whole different subject anyway. Alright, so I'm going to play the game from scratch here, and I'm not going to take you through a full playthrough. That would be God knows how many hours. But I'm going to be playing through, and I'm going to be talking about certain psychological appeals as we go along, appeals that I see, and I'll be raising those points as the gameplay appears to bring them up. Okay, so off we go, right from the beginning. New game. Okay, so yeah, so we start off with this sequence of seeing through the character's eyes and He's in a cart going down a hill. I think that's about to kick in now, if I remember rightly. I have played through the game a couple of times before, so my memory of some of this stuff might be vague. So here we are as this brand new character, and we're going to go through this brief introduction to the world, and we'll come to the character creation part. Okay, so one of the first things I want to talk about, which will relate to the character creation, is the fact that when we play video games, you know, a lot of us talk about games in this way as escapism. And for me, it's the same thing. Sometimes if I've had a rough day, I've been dealing with awkward things, problematic things in everyday life, and you just want to escape. And so when you go into a video game, yes, you're entering a different world to your own normal world, and it's a good way of clearing your mind of those things. It's one of the reasons why I often like to play video games before going to sleep at night. And, well, I guess you could say that you don't just enter a new world, but you also scrap your own personal identity from real life when you go into a game like this. This, I think, is an absolutely essential element of Skyrim and other games that have character creation especially. And that is that when you start this game off from the beginning, it's like you've just been born. Except when we're born in real life, we are a helpless baby, we have to have everything done for us by other people, and we have to be nurtured and moulded by other people to a large extent during childhood. But here, we get to be born as a full adult with no history. Our own personal history in real life is gone. Our own personal limitations in real life are gone. Even our own physical appearance in real life is gone. And we get to start as a brand new person, born as an adult, and we get to create ourselves. And the idea of doing this in the real world is fantastic. Imagine if you could just sort of recreate yourself in the real world. Oh, I think I'll remold my face, I'll remold my body, and I'll give myself a whole bunch of new attributes and skills that I don't actually have in my current life at the moment. So yeah, this is a massive appeal, and we're about to get into this in a moment. Okay, so, you know, we've got the world here, and there's a lot of verticality here for some reason. Seems to be an important appeal in this game. We tend to live in our real lives. Most of us don't live in mountain regions like this. Most of us live in fairly flat and slightly boring worlds. But in Skyrim, verticality is a big thing. You know, lots of tall castles, tall mountains, tall trees, all that kind of thing. So there's an automatic, you know, exoticness to the location just on that base level alone. Okay, so we're in this situation here where our character has been captured by one faction in the world and is assumed to be a member of a rival faction and is about to be executed. Tribalism, I think, is a big important thing in this game, but not just the sense of tribalism in the normal sense of, you know, you pick one side and you stick with it. I mean, in Skyrim, more than the previous game that I mentioned, Morrowind, the previous Elder Scrolls game, in Morrowind, you tended to join a faction, and then your choices in the world were kind of limited by that. But in Skyrim, from what I remember, most of the way you're able to leave factions, join other factions, betray factions, and then go back and find your way back into the original faction. So being able to jump ship back and forth between factions is a big appeal in this game, I think, which isn't something that happens much in real life. In real life, we tend to have to pick what factions in the world we want to join, and then we have to sort of stick with them, and if we betray them, we're out for good. Okay, so coming up to this character creation thing, and yeah, I mean, this is something I find really fascinating, in that I would love to see a psychological study done, a proper academic controlled study in which, say, 100 gamers, 100 participants, say people who'd never played Skyrim before, which wouldn't be most gamers, but if you took 100 odd people and you said, hey, we got this new game, Skyrim, you know, some of the people in the controlled study could be kids, some of them adults and so on, and you say, hey, we've got this game, Skyrim, look how awesome it is, it's huge, you've got this world you can do stuff in. Now, here, play the game, and we want to watch you do your character creation, and we want to record it, and do it that way, and just record footage of people choosing these characters, and changing the gender and changing the facial features and all the rest of it. Now there's something a bit wrong on the footage here, actually, by the way. I think there's some leftovers from one of the mods that I had on the game seem to be interfering with what's on screen here. But anyway, hopefully that won't be a problem. So anyway, I was saying I'd like to see a study done in which, say, 100 people create their characters in the game. They choose the attributes, they choose the races, they change the facial features and the body size and all that kind of stuff. And then afterwards, the people running the study could compare the character creations to the people who created them. Because I'd be interested to see how many people, when they go through these character creations, actually create a character that looks roughly like themselves, but also how much people change the details of these characters to enhance or compensate for aspects of their own physical appearance in real life that they're not happy with. Okay, so now I personally, for example, when I've ever played through this game or any other, I tend not to like playing characters that are too exotic. I wouldn't typically want to play as a lizard, or the dark elves look a little bit too sort of like aliens for me, and the Khajiit, it's just a cat as far as I'm concerned. I like to play a character who has human traits, so it would be either a Nord or a Red Guard or something along those lines, or an Imperial. So let's see, which one are we going to go for here? Maybe a Breton. I can't even remember what the skills and stuff of these characters are. Let me think a moment. Good on spellcraft, resistance to magic. Yeah, okay, I'll go as a Breton. Okay, so I like the resistance to magic that the character's got, and it's a human character, so I'll pick that one. I'm a male, so I'll go as a male. Typically, that's what I'd do if I'm doing a character creation. I'm a male, so I pick a male. And then you have all these presets and stuff, and like I was saying, I have a suspicion that most people tend to pick physical appearances for the characters that are sort of similar to themselves, but kind of an enhanced version of themselves. So let's see. Well, I haven't got black hair. I suppose this one would probably be similar to me. Skin tone, I could make him a black guy, but I'm a white guy, so I don't really identify as black. So no offense to anyone, but that's just the way I am. It's just demonstrating the point. So weight, I have put a little bit of weight on as I got older, not in the shoulders so much, but okay, let's just go for a slightly stocky appearance there. Head, complexion. Okay, so dirt, don't need any dirt, scars, war paint, maybe a couple of scars. Yeah, I'll do. Face, nose type. But like I say, I suspect that a lot of people sort of would compensate for their own physical appearance in the real world. I mean, I've got a slightly large nose in real life, so I mean, if I was going to pick a character that looked exactly like me, it would have a larger nose. So, I would probably go for a character with a more normal, average-sized nose. And I suspect that a hell of a lot of people do this with their character creations. They take the aspects of what they don't particularly like about how they physically look in the real world, and they change them. Eyes. I think those eyes are all sort of okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on this character creation thing, because I mean, you can be here all day doing this. Okay. Let's get rid of the hair, facial hair. Again, this I don't go around having goatees or beards in real life. I tend to be either clean shaven or have a little bit of stubble. So that's typically what I would choose for my character in the game. I'll just go for clean shaven. And hair colour, like I say, I think people tend to pick something similar to themselves. But my hair is sort of dark brown, so it's probably darker than that. Yeah, I think that was the original one. Okay, so I'm going to stick with this. Right, so what do we do here? Press X, finish and name your character. And I'll just call myself Rob Ager, of course, because, you know, we identify with the person who we play in the game.
You from Daggerfall, Breton? Fleeing from some court intrigue?
Forget the list. He goes to the block.
By your orders, Captain. I'm sorry. We'll make sure your remains are returned to High Rock.
Okay, so we're about to be executed here, and I'm just going to consult my notes here. I made a lot of notes about this game, so that I wouldn't just be rambling too much as we go along, have some kind of structure to this. Okay, so we're about to get executed, and a sort of divine intervention is about to happen for the character. We see other people get executed, but then it doesn't happen to us.
You started this war, plunged Skyrim into chaos, and now the Empire is going to put you down and restore the peace.
And this thing of being rescued from the brink of death, right at the beginning of the game here, I think this taps into a very strong appeal in these games, which I'm going to refer to, perhaps insultingly, as the illusion of achievement. And that is what this game does, and what a lot of other similar games do, is we are encouraged to interact with the world, fight, try and do things, and achieve things on our own. And, you know, the game will attack us in various ways, and we have to defend and fight back and all that kind of stuff. And when we fight back and we defeat the enemy, we feel good about ourselves. We feel like, oh, I achieved something. But whenever the game ends up with a situation where we can't fight back, the game steps in and saves us. So it's like we're never really in danger of absolutely losing the game. You know, you can get killed, but you also have your save files, and you can come back to life and only lose a tiny bit of progress. So the game is constantly giving this impression that you are achieving things, but yet the whole thing is designed so that you're never challenged to the point where you can actually completely lose. I remember when I was a kid, video games then, and in my teens as well, video games used to be really tough. You could lose a game and have to go right back to the beginning of the game. You could make it to the final level of a game, and then you would fucking die on the final level, and you'd have to go and start at the very beginning of the game. So when you did beat a game, it used to feel like, my God, that was an achievement. But also, if you lost, you felt like, oh, I'm fucking a loser because, you know, I got killed so easily, or I failed to achieve exactly what I wanted to achieve. And so the new kind of games that we have today, including Skyrim, tend to do this. They don't let us ever really lose. Okay, so here we are. We've got this dragon attacking. The dragon is a kind of divine intervention. And I kind of think of the dragon here as being almost like the game itself is interfering. Sorry, the game itself is intervening on our behalf to make things easier for us. Right, so I'm too busy talking. I'm trying to think where the hell we're meant to go in here. Oh, there we go. Yeah. See, I'm getting hit by all these meteors and stuff, and I'm not actually dying. Okay, so in we go. Other people are dying, but I'm not. Come on then. Are you going first or am I? Okay, so we follow this idiot, and the limitations of video game AI are kicking in already. Oh my God. Right. I said I wasn't going to shout oh my God in this playthrough, but I just did. Alright, so we got this guy and we're following him. Okay, so jump through the roof. Alright, now all of this sort of training where you're being taught the controls of the game, how to move and all this kind of stuff. I kind of think of all this as being like a childhood. You know, like I said, we start the game born anew as an adult, and we have no personal history. Okay, we're following this guy. Oh yeah, the childhood element. Uh-oh, what the hell? So yeah, we go through this training section of the game. We get taught the basic skills, how to jump, how to run, and in a moment we'll be learning how to fight with swords and all this kind of stuff. So I think of this as being like a kind of a childhood. You know, the game gives us a very brief childhood, even though we're actually adult-sized, and we grow up very, very quickly. And so you could think of these characters who are leading us along the way here as almost being like temporary parents. Which one will I go with? I'm going to go with the Stormcloak, because I tend to side with the underdog a lot in real life. And yeah, so there you go. Okay, so now we get to do a little bit of fighting.
We better get moving. Come here. Let me see if I can get those bindings off.
Well, come on then.
There you go. You may as well take Gunyor's gear. He won't be needing it anymore.
Right, so let's take all them. It's been a little while since I played this, so forgive me for being a bit crap on the controls right now. I'm just getting used to it all again. Okay, so put the fair boots on. Okay, Dad, let's go. I wonder what happens if I pickpocket this guy during the training section. Oh, anyway, right. You know what? I'm not even sure what difficulty level I've got this game on at the moment. Check that in a minute.
Victory is yours. I submit. Close.
Okay.
See if you can unlock that door.
Let's drop that. Now, I'm sure bits and pieces here I could probably sell, but you know, I'm not trying to do a demonstration here of how to be good at the game. I'm well out of practice, and I'm probably going to be crap at the game. Now, if I remember rightly, we can. Oh yeah, we can have two weapons at once. That's good.
Unlock that door and let's get out of here.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? I can hold a weapon in each hand and unlock a door at the same time.
Brings the whole tower down on our heads.
Okay, so what difficulty level are we on here? Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to go for master level. Yeah. Okay, now remember the thing I said about we have this illusion of achievement appeal in video games, where we want the game to be tough enough that it feels like we're kicking ass and achieving things, but we don't want the game to be tough enough that we keep actually properly losing. And, you know, I'm guilty of that too. I mean, if I really wanted to have a challenge in this game, I could pick legendary level for the fighting and stuff. Which you know what, I might do that in a minute, actually. Okay, I can take that and sell it. Now, this is funny. You can actually take time out to steal stuff off bodies and check how much things are worth and all that kind of thing, and you can do that in the middle of battle, which is quite amusing. Okay, so I'm on master level. Should I play this on legendary? I don't think I've ever played legendary before. You know what the hell, I'm going to do it. Let's go for it. Settings, gameplay. Let's go for legendary gameplay, which I've never done before. So I assume I'm going to get my arse kicked at various points. But if I remember rightly, you level up better on the higher levels of difficulty because the challenges give your character more experience. Okay, so take all them. How's my health doing? Oh, seems to be fine. Okay, healing. Now, I'm sure there's little bits and pieces, hidden things around here that I can collect, but I can't really remember. Like I said, I'm not doing a... How do you run in this? That was it.
Blood. It's a torture room.
Right. Let's go for the attack. See how fast I leveled up there? This is because I'm on legendary, I think. Who's on oh, who's on my side here?
You can't beat me.
Where are you? Okay, so we've got 3 companions there. Okay, so this thing about achieving things, but the game not actually challenging too much, we're already being helped out on that by the fact that we've got companions who are distracting the enemies so we can just hit them. Okay, now, before we start moving on and doing other things here, there's something else that's just come up here which I think is quite important. In this game, your own personal character doesn't suffer much in the way of gore. You don't get limbs hacked off. You don't get bloody injuries that get infected. You know, this one of the things about video games. Oh, that's all I'll do. Is that there's a certain sort of physical invincibility. You get attacked, you get slashed, you can get attacked with magic, or in some games you get shot and blown up. And instead of actually having injuries, you just have this health bar that temporarily goes down a little bit, and then it either comes back up on its own, or you take a medikit and you instantly heal. So you're almost like a god. You're physically invincible. And the game isn't too gory. I mean, if I hack and slash enemies, they don't tend to lose their limbs. They don't get legs and arms chopped off. If I hack at this body, I'm not actually making mincemeat of it. We see splashes of blood, but we don't actually see anything being sliced. Now, I know some of that is down to the technical limitations of what can be done with these game characters. You know, it would take a hell of a lot of programming and stuff, and extra graphics to be able to make the bodies so that you could hack them up like you would in real life. However, the game sort of contradicts itself by having this issue of torture pop up time and time again. So you fight other characters who they have blood splashes when you hit them, but they don't actually have any injuries to show, which is kind of plays down real world violence. But at the same time, you've got these torture rooms that show up here and there in the game where you have evidence that torture has happened. But we never actually seem to see any torture in the game. We don't see people getting fingers hacked off in a torture session, or an ear chopped off, or worse things. We don't actually see any of that. We don't see any severed fingers on the floor here, any other severed body parts. We don't see any pulled out teeth lying around or anything like that. We just see the blood, and we occasionally see cages, and I think at some points in the game we see torture racks. There's none in here right now. But clearly this is a torture dungeon, and one of these characters, well, he's called a torturer. So, we have this contradiction, and that the game plays down the reality, the brutality of real violence, and the kind of physical damage that is done with brutal tools like axes and swords and knives and so on. And yet at the same time, the game keeps showing us this issue of torture occurring time and time again throughout the world. It's an interesting contradiction, and I'm not sure exactly what that is all about. I think having the evidence that torture has happened is probably there in the game as a way of compensating for the fact that the violence is played down. But we don't actually see the torture, so the game plays down the reality of violence massively, but at the same time, it pretends to embrace the reality of real life torture and the physical brutality and injuries of battle. It's an interesting little sort of mind trick. I've noticed more and more games over the years do this. More and more open world games or other types of games will have the issue of torture pop up as part of the narrative or part of the game world. And usually it's evidence that torture has happened. Most games don't actually show it. GTA 5 had the very controversial torture scene that was actually shown, and the character had to take part in it. So that was quite an interesting variation. So yeah, that's just something I find pretty interesting. Okay, so we have the ability to pick locks. Yeah, okay, I don't know how to do this. Oh, another way. That should do it. Okay, there we go. That's it, yeah. Okay, so more evidence of torture. And yeah, I think having the torture stuff occur at this stage of the game, right at the beginning, it's kind of like to say to us, hey, look, you know, this is real. This is the real shit. This is dark, scary stuff. And, you know, to give us the idea that this world is actually dangerous, and that there's a certain amount of reality. It's just that this thing of torture tends to be used in a lot of games and movies today to try and give an impression of realism. But just because something has a torture element does not mean that it's realistic. Okay, so...
Waiting to be killed by a dragon. We need to pull back.
Oh! Oh. Okay, so I'm going to have to change here. My magic is a bit crap at the moment, so let's get a shield on, develop that shield skill. Jesus, he's actually pretty tough, this guy. I'm on legendary difficulty, so I guess things are a bit tougher. Come on. Come on.
I'm on your side. I cannot best you.
Right, okay, so that's tougher than the normal the normal fight. Normally it's just really, really easy to fight, so hopefully this legendary version is a bit more of a challenge. Let's get a little bit of magic on the go here with flames.
Let's go on ahead. Let's see where this goes.
Okay then. Well, just in case we can't figure it out, he's demonstrating how to use those things. So we have these caves, and the caves are hardly ever actually dark. Virtually all the caves in this game have some sort of supernatural lighting. Again, makes things easier. The game doesn't want to challenge us too much. I love the fact that in this game you just find lots of money hidden around everywhere, just laying around, and it's just really easy to take money. I mean, making money in real life is a lot more challenging because people hide their money, people protect their money. You can't just walk around and find money lying around everywhere. But in this game, money comes extremely easy. Jesus, God, this is tougher. Yeah, okay, legendary makes the fights a lot harder. Okay, so heal, heal, heal. My God, used 3 of them. Okay, so we're going to need some decent weapons on here. Let's get, there it is. Let's get the shield on. That wasn't too bad, I just needed a shield. So, okay, so this whole thing about giant spiders. Now, I do like the way the spiders look in this game. They move very well, you know, the animation's good and all that kind of stuff. Pretty creepy looking spiders, nice designs. Also, you know, also quite almost beautiful. But so many games, I don't know why, almost every fantasy game that comes out has to have giant spiders. I don't know what it is. It's become a bit of a cliche. You know, you got it in movies like Crawl and Lord of the Rings, and you know, you got it in games like Skyrim, and I think The Witcher probably has them. And it's just a little sort of side note. This isn't necessarily about the psychological appeals of the game, but sometimes I think a lot of the fantasy games lack imagination because, oh, let's just have giant spiders because everybody else has them. And yeah, you know, a lot of people have got phobias of spiders, but you know, what about something that's more like giant centipedes, giant cockroaches? You know, if you're going to do giant creepy crawlies, pick some creepy crawlies that don't normally appear in games and do versions of them instead. Or make up new creatures that are horrifically ugly. Yeah, so just a little gripe there about the use of giant spiders in so many games. Oh, but also, of course, let's just go back there a moment. Spiders, I mean, I suppose spiders are an extremely common human phobia. So throwing them into the game kind of compensates. But we never actually see spiders doing really horrible things to people. You know, like a real spider, if it kills an insect, will, you know, freeze it and then slowly suck it dry of all of its blood. We don't see that actually happening in the game, and we don't see it happening to us. During a fight, we'll just have the spider will bite at us, and there'll be a little splash of blood. But the spider doesn't pin us down, seal us up in a web, and then suck at our blood and suck us dry. That would be horrific if the game actually showed that. So, you know, we have this thing of the game takes these things which are commonly perceived as extremely dangerous. Oh, what am I doing? And it gives us these watered down versions that are a lot less dangerous. So the appearance of danger, but the lack of actual danger. Have I got any more skill points? Oh yeah, I got skill points. Right, so which one do we build up first? This whole idea of skill points that you use in games. Oh, I think I've got a skill point to spend like it's a currency. Like skills are a currency. I'm not really as keen on this aspect of the game. I prefer it when games only give you skills that are based on the fact that you've used them. For example, if you want to up your lock picking, you just pick locks and it ups the skill that way. But I suppose that the game actually does do that, but then it gives you these options of just spending these skill currency points. It's just weird. Yeah. You know, for me, it takes away a little bit of realism, a feeling of realism to the game. But then people don't play games for realism. If people want realism, they can just switch off the game and engage with the real world around them. So yeah, we want the fantasy stuff. Okay, so what am I going to spend my point on? Smithing. Yeah. If I remember rightly, smithing was one of the most important skills to develop in the game, and it's worth doing quite early on. I'm probably going to get slaughtered by this bear now. Yeah. Can I jump out the way here? Whoa! Okay, so using shields is essential in legendary difficulty. There you go. But again, you know, go back to that thing what I said about the spiders. Having bears as enemies in games is very, very common. Now, we could just have really exotic creatures in the game that are very, very unlike real-world creatures. But we have just a bear, you know, the standard black bear, which is like Yeah, okay. And I suppose this brings up a point that I was definitely going to bring up somewhere along the way in this game, and that despite the exoticness, the exotic elements of this game and others like it, the game, in order for us to relate to it emotionally, the game requires elements that are very, very similar to our own real world. Now, we don't personally encounter bears in real life. You know, we might see them at the zoo or something, but we know that bears exist. It's probably best if we split up, because you are now a grown-up, saith the Nord. So anyway, this Stormcloak guy, who basically was our father for a little while, training us, is now going away and leaving us to do our own thing. We are out in the real world. We have flown the nest. We have emerged from the birth canal of the training portion of the game. And, you know, now suddenly the world is wide open. So this is kind of like being... It's almost like you've left home. You know, you're a teenage kid who's left home. Oh, it's a shame about these graphical problems going on here. Yeah, I had a ton of mods in that altered the landscape, made all nice trees and grass and everything else, and it looks like even though I've switched off those mods, it has left its mark on the world in terms of glitches. So anyway, I was saying this thing about the animals and various elements of the world. In order for a game like this to be really relatable, it's a requirement of the game that it has a lot of extreme similarities to our own actual world. We all know that Rocky Mountains and stuff really exist in real life. We know that bears exist. We know that spiders exist. They're not giant ones. But these are all things that we can relate to as part of our real existence. And phobia of spiders is a huge thing in real life. So, is that? Yeah, that's the sort of castle village that we started off in. Alright, so, and then you're free to go anywhere you want. You know, you've had your training, you're now an adult with basic skills, you've got some weapons and stuff, and you can go and do whatever you like. So yeah, I mean, a game like this will make itself look very, very much like our own actual real world. And if a game goes too exotic, it can lose its appeal. I mean, I know there's been plenty of video games out there that are extremely exotic. Oh, an iron ore vein, but we haven't got a pickaxe. Games that are extremely exotic in their appearances can become unrelatable. Even if the gameplay were exactly the same as this, if the world was too exotic, we'd be like, oh, what the fuck? And that's because, you know, on a subconscious level, these games are almost like a practice training ground for our real world survival urges. And, you know, a lot of this stuff ties back into caveman instinct. You know, it's like part of our own natural state of being, which is still present in us biologically, genetically, is that we sort of evolved for physical fighting with clubs and similar items, like, you know, we eventually invented swords and axes and things like that. But we are physically designed for throwing rocks, hitting each other with clubs, you know, that kind of tribal fighting, killing animals and that kind of thing. And in the real world today, those kind of urges are kind of defunct, and those urges are left unsatisfied because everything's all about finance and digitization and legal documents and all that kind of stuff. And so a game like this allows us to, on a sort of limited level, play with those natural instincts that we all have. And, you know, the fact that, you know, it's Nordic Viking type stuff, which is, you know, has almost like a caveman brutality to it. The fact that the game involves that kind of paradigm, I think, is one of the reasons that games like this tend to appeal to more boys than girls. You know, boys, we are, you know, predisposed biologically, genetically, it seems, to deal with life's problems with violence. And so I think for that reason, a lot of girls aren't so much interested in Minecraft. My little girl, in Minecraft, I was just going to say, my little girl, she loves Minecraft. She's not as keen on Skyrim. She enjoys it a little bit, but she enjoys it not for the fighting element so much as she enjoys the things like having a horse that you can ride out around on and that kind of thing. You know, anything to do with animals. Okay, so we got these skills that you can acquire: the Mage Stone, the Tea Stone, the Warrior Stone. I think I'll go for the Magic one, because if I remember rightly, it can be very frustrating trying to build up the Destruction skill. So having this would help with that. Okay, so we got the Mage Stone added. Right. But again, this is all part of the character creation, design, being able to shape your own identity, instant skills. You get skills not by practicing and learning and having to study, but you get skills by having skill points. You just spend them and you've got a skill, which doesn't seem to happen so much in real life. Right. Oh, wolves, okay. Come on. Come on. Okay, now wolves is more... Oh. Oh, God, I missed him. Just about one. Now, normally, on any other mode, I would kick ass, but because this is legendary mode, that was a much tougher fight than usual. Well, anyway, wolves is certainly something we relate to. You know, wolves are similar to dogs, and, you know, in real life, dogs are a kind of a bit of a threat. Dogs are something that we fear a little bit. It's strange we have these companion creatures called dogs, and yet they've got these fangs which are clearly designed to kill. And being attacked by a dog that's going wild is kind of a common human fear, so we can all relate to that. Now, one thing I do find a little bit sort of about this and a lot of other games is the map system. Maps are make things a bit too easy. It's too easy to find your way around when you've got a map that just shows you everything you need to know. I mean, right away on the map here, huge amounts of information are available about the world, where the towns are, where the mountains are, where there's rivers and streams and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I prefer the mystery where you're wandering around the world and discovering things for yourself. So I often like games that don't have a map, or they have a limited map that you have to, it only shows you things that you discover as you go along. And it's a shame that they just have this open map like this right at the beginning. Okay, so into the town.
She's already mine, I keep telling him.
Okay, so NPCs with their extremely simplistic dialogue and actions wandering about. Now, I know artificial intelligence is very, very limited, far more limited than its promoters would like to admit. And, you know, I talked years ago in videos about how human level AI is just, it's not fucking happening. It's like nowhere near it. And there's hardly any sign that human level artificial intelligence is coming in the future. It might not come at all. If it does come, it'll be a long, long time away. So anyway, we have very limited AI on characters in games. Now, how much of this is just down to technical limitations? You know, the people who make the games are limited in what they can do, or they don't know how to get the NPCs to act more intelligent and more responsive and seem more real. How much of it is that? And how much of it is actually that the NPCs are intentionally kept extremely dumb in the games, so as to make it so that we feel more intelligent and more capable by comparison? I mean, like I said, with the giant spider and the bear, and probably the wolves as well, being attacked by a bear in real life, would you be able to defend yourself with a sword, just one sword? I don't know. I think the bear would just pounce and just destroy the person. And a giant spider, if such a thing could exist, would be quite a formidable opponent as well. And so the enemies are made to look terrifying in the game, but in terms of behaviour, they're nowhere near as terrifying as they would be if there was a real life equivalent. So we had those wolves as well. The wolves, they bite, but they don't latch on. In real life, if a dog or a wolf attacks you, it will grab on, not let go, and then drag its head back and forth to tear the hell out of your leg or your arm or your neck or whatever it's grabbed. But we don't really have that happen in this game. They just leap, do a little bite, move back, and we are free to just carry on attacking them. They don't clamp onto us. So I kind of, that kind of stuff is certainly, there's some deliberateness in that. Make the enemies look terrifying, but make them easy to defeat compared to a real life equivalent. And the NPCs being extremely stupid. I know a lot of people would like NPCs to be far more intelligent than they actually are, but at the same time, I think we take a lot of enjoyment out of the fact that when we go into a game like this, the enemies are extremely stupid, and we are like a god by comparison to them because we're so much more capable. Right, okay, so for male players of the game,
Whatever you need.
here we have our first female in the game, and is she just a normal human, or is she one of those dark elves? No, she's not a dark elf, she's just a human who has very sort of dark elf-like features, I think. I don't think she's an actual dark elf. Yeah, okay. So anyway, we have our first female in the game, and the presentation of women in the game is really interesting. Most of the women in this game have a certain hotness to them. I mean, yeah, I know she's all like polygons and stuff, and it's got its limitations and all that. But if you had a human equivalent of this woman with the same kind of figure and the same kind of face, we'd probably find her really attractive. You don't get fat people in this game. There's no fat women, there's no fat men. I don't think there's anyone's an anorexic. Most of the women in this game have a reasonably attractive figure and a reasonably attractive face. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? The sexual appeals. But we never see the women naked, and some of the most popular mods for this game involve having the women having huge jugs and wearing thongs, and you can get mods where your character can actually have sex with these women and stuff like that. And I think that was always part of the psychological appeal with this game in the first place, is that
We got rooms.
you have all these women, you can't really see much, you don't figure-wise, but you can see that they're shapely enough and they're pretty enough. So there's a kind of erotic appeal that was always built into the game. And again, this goes back to that caveman instinct, fighting animals, fighting with your bare hands, with clubs and sticks and knives and stuff like that. And so if you're going to go for caveman appeal, then just having loads of hot women around who you just want to bang, that naturally fits in with that as well. But of course, these kinds of appeals are something that we very often play down in video games and movies these days. You go back to the old Tomb Raider games, the early ones, and Lara Croft had these massive jugs, and yet she had this incredibly slim figure, very unusual. And so today we still have hot women in games, but with the latest Lara Croft, they've reduced the size of the breasts, and she shows a little bit less flesh and all that kind of stuff. But it's such a bullshit way of trying to hide the basic appeal that the women in a lot of these games are just really hot because guys are playing the games, and the people making the games know that guys want to bang women, and a lot of teenage boys playing the games will have fantasies about women. So they try to deliver the fantasy in terms of the figures and the faces of the characters being something equivalent to a really sexually attractive woman in real life. but they try to play it down by having them overclothed or not make the size of the breasts too obvious and all that kind of thing, you know. So yeah. So we have these nice towns and villages, and you know, a lot of this stuff relates back to sort of old English architecture, you know, well, not necessarily English, but medieval way of life. And you know, medieval way of life still appeals to us because it ties into that caveman instinct. The medieval way of life involved a lot of the same physical activities that a caveman's life would have. I'm just going to talk a moment about the holiday motive as well. One of the huge appeals of games like this, open world games, is that in real life we like to go on exotic holidays, and we can't always afford it, we don't always have the time, and sometimes going on real holidays can be an absolute pain because of the, you know, the a lot of the pressures involved and getting lost and all that kind of stuff, and having to do a lot of physical walking and travelling and stuff, and long flights and things like that. What's this? I'll take that. But in a game like this, and this happens in a lot of action movies as well, maybe even horror movies too, we get to go on a holiday. You're on a mission. You know, you're on a mission to take over and defeat dragons or whatever the hell it is your mission is. But along the way, you get to go to exotic places, and yeah, it's like being on a holiday. It's a huge holiday motive, and especially, I mean, I've been talking about the James Bond films quite a bit in some of my videos lately. One of the massive appeals of the James Bond films is holidays. Bond gets to go on holidays to just about every exciting location in the world, and so we have the holiday motive here as well. Anyway, just loaded up again here because there's a few other things I want to say about the villages and towns in this game. So here we are at the very first town that we encounter. The story encourages us to go here. It guides you to this Riverwood town. Okay, so what are the functions of the towns in this game? I mean, we have all these open spaces that we can explore out in the wilderness, climbing up in the mountains and stuff, and fighting things and adventuring, and we could argue that, you know, that's a kind of a caveman type motive of, you know, just being out in the wild and killing things and living off the land and all that type of thing. And yet we have towns in this game, and the game certainly would not be the same without towns. You want to have some sort of civilization in there, and I think there's a kind of a thing going on here with this, where in terms of our motivations in playing this kind of game, you know, we want to have the freedom to explore the wilderness, do whatever the hell we want when we go out into the world, and not much consequences, no restrictions of society when we're out in the wild. And yet we want the benefits of civilization to be at our fingertips whenever we want them, or maybe not at our fingertips, but we want to have this world so that the benefits of civilization are available from time to time. So we can go into these towns and we can interact with these NPCs and stuff. And they have very limited AI, but when we are in these towns, we are virtually always safe in the game. You know, when you're in here, you don't have to worry about wolves and trolls and things and giants attacking you, because for some reason they just don't really come into the towns. And the only creature that attacks the towns, which comes later on, is dragons. So that's just something I find a little bit interesting, is how in a game like this we have the pros and cons of both freedom to explore the wild and the safety of a civilized area on the map, and we can bounce back and forth between the two as we please. And I think we want this in real life as well. I mean, we see a lot of conflict in the world where a lot of people are sick of civilization and they want to be at one with nature, and they, you know, did talk about freedom and all the rest of it. And you know, I talk about these things too. and we complain about the restrictions of civilization. But if that was what we really wanted, then we would just get rid of all of our clothes and all our money and our belongings, and we'd just go and walk naked into the forest and go, right, we're happy now, living off the land. But of course we know that is not a perfectly great way to live at all. In fact, very difficult to survive. So we do want some of the benefits that civilization brings, but we don't want civilization to be too restrictive. And I think that kind of plays out in the fact that, well, in a game like this where you have the benefits of both worlds at your fingertips. But also, the fact that when we go into the civilized areas in this world, we don't have as much restriction as we do in our own civilized society in the real world. And yeah, the world that we have here, I mean, there's no surveillance cameras, there's no track and trace stuff, you know, there's a hell of a lot of the kind of restrictions that we have in our society in the real world are missing here. I think what I'm trying to say is we don't really have the bureaucracy, the severe bureaucracy in the civilized parts of the Skyrim world that we have in the real world. And people are sick and tired of bureaucracy. People get sick and tired of very detailed, complex laws that everybody has to follow. And if you're not following them, you get arrested or fined and all this kind of stuff. We do have elements of that in this game, but it's a very, very limited version. It's almost like a Western, isn't it? And I think that's one of an appeal that is present. That is present in fantasy worlds like this, you know, with the sort of medieval type of civilization, and in Western movies. You know, cowboys, you know, Clint Eastwood could walk into a place like this and it wouldn't really look too different to a Western. And also post-apocalyptic worlds, you know, games like Fallout and movies like Mad Max and stuff like that. I think what all three of those kinds of things have in common as an appeal is that post-apocalyptic, fantasy and Western worlds all involve the protagonist being largely free of bureaucratic restrictions on their lives. So we don't have any skyscrapers full of people in offices typing away at computers with mountains of paperwork, keeping a tab on everything that everybody's doing and all that kind of thing. All that is missing. It's not in human nature to want to have our lives be determined by stuff that is just written on paper. You know, legal documents and all that kind of stuff. It's not really our natural way of being to have our lives controlled so much by bureaucracy, which is just stuff written on paper or written in a computer. And so these kinds of fantasy worlds get us away from that. All right, so there's tons of other stuff that I've got written down that I want to explore regarding the civilized parts of the world, but I don't want to just spend forever just hanging out in Riverwood here. So we'll just crack on with the story. Wrong controls, how do I jump? There we go. Still getting used to controls on this again.
Riverwood? If you look, Lucan over in the Riverwood Trader says thieves broke into his store. Strange. He says they hardly took anything. Here's the key to the house. Okay. Stay as long as you like. If there is anything else you need, just let me know. There is something you could do for me. For all of us here. The Jarl needs to know if there's a dragon on the loose. Riverwood is defenseless. We need to get word to Jarl Balgruuf in Whiterun to send whatever troops he can. If you'll do that for me, I'll be in your debt.
Okay, fair enough, young lady. So let's get out of this town. We will be talking more about the civilization aspects of this game as we get through this playthrough, but for now let's start exploring the world a bit, because I don't want everything to be restricted to one place. Okay, so when we were in that town there, we had more of that verticality issue, which we had at the beginning of the game when we were going to get our head chopped off in that other town. And there was a real emphasis on vertical cliffs, vertical rock structures surrounding that town, which were almost like prison bars. You know, it's, when I was saying earlier, there's an extreme emphasis on verticality in these environments. So we got there again here with this town, and I think there's a couple of different things going on with this. Well, one is that, you know, the town is very nice and stuff, but the size of the trees and the mountains around it dwarfs the town. It makes the town look vulnerable. It makes the outside wilderness look creepy and scary. Oh, we got a crab there. Do some arrow practice. I wonder how difficult mud crabs are in legendary mode. They can take quite a few hits. Hey, where are you going? This is gorgeous looking world. But yeah, as I was saying, the verticality. Hey, hang on, mud crab is back. Can he do any damage? Oh my god, he does a huge amount of damage. Run away, run away. Hey, at least I've leveled up anyway. A mud crab did me a huge amount of damage. Whoa. I mean, mud crabs, I think I would have labelled them as the least intimidating creature in the game in terms of the damage that they can do. So, obviously this could be a very tough playthrough. I am running away from a mud crab. And he's taken a lot of abuse. Did he die? Die! My god, all that to fight a mud crab. So I'm sure you can all have a good laugh at this. At how crap I am at this because I'm in legendary mode. Right, what the hell was I saying? I was talking about the verticality. Verticality there, verticality in the previous town where the dragon attacked. And so the world is very imposing to us because of its height. But I think a lot of that is a kind of a perceptual setup for the fact that we are going to emerge now. Ah, here we go. Time to fight. Yeah, the verticality I think is largely a setup for the fact that we are now going to emerge into a very large open landscape, so it gives perceptual variety. Now, if I'm going to fight wolves here, I need to get my act together on this fighting stuff, so... Come on then. Hey, okay. Oh, God, that's very nice, thank you. Right. Now, normally I wouldn't just progress straight forward in the game like this beyond Riverwood. I would hang around in Riverwood at the beginning and, you know, practice some fighting outside of Riverwood and get some skills and earn some money there. But I just want to take us forward into this world now so that we can get on with some of this interesting stuff. So yeah, we go from those vertical environments where you're surrounded by tall things, tall trees, tall rock outcroppings and stuff, and then we come out, if we'd have followed the path properly, oh, we would have come out over here somewhere, and the path would have brought us to this massive open space. So yeah, I mean, although a lot of this world kind of looks the same, you know, at least the variation, you know, you go from very vertical areas to very flat areas where everything's wide open. I am not fighting a giant in legendary mode. But when I take the stuff off his body,
You're making me angry.
so let's watch how these two do. Oh, Farkas, he's important to us, isn't he? So I guess they're going to kill the giant because Being that these are important NPCs, I think they can't die. Ah.
Good enough.
Oh, well.
Oh, is that all I got on? Some fucking arrows. And that was it. Oh, I was supposed to
You
get
handle
a
yourself
giant's
well.
toe and...
You could make for a decent
thank you.
shield, brother.
Okay, so we're coming up to Whiterun. So we got these travel and trader type people. So what are these people called? The Khajiit, or the kittens, as I prefer to call them.
The warm sand of elsewhere is far away from here.
Okay, so stuff like the Khajiit and the, what are the lizard people called? The Argonians. This stuff's interesting because on the one hand, we've got racial issues going on in this game. Okay, shut up, I'll talk. We've got racial issues going on in this game. You know, society divided up into different racial groups. And we do have, funnily enough, black people and white people in the game, from what I remember. I'm sure there's black characters who show up in the game, and there's, well, you can make your own character black as well. So we have racial differences, black and white, but I don't remember there being any Chinese looking characters in the game or anything like that. So we've got basic black and white people like we have in the real world, but not other races, you know, like Latinas and Asians and so on. We don't have that, but instead we have these various other creatures. Now, I'm not even saying for 1 minute that the races of our world are being represented as animals, you know, in a sort of racist sense. No, not referring to that at all. But yeah, we have all these different racial groups, and at the same time we have people as animals. And this is something that, you know, goes back in human history as a psychological element. We've all seen those Egyptian carvings and paintings on the walls where they had humans with animal heads. Someone's got a snake head, someone's got a goat head. And so yeah, humanoid figures with animal heads. There's something going on in the human psyche. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that we have a habit of trying to take real animals in the world, and in the same way that we can sometimes anthropomorphize objects, which is to perceive objects as alive, which are actually dead, and kids do that a lot. Kids, especially, and adults sometimes, also tend to perceive animals as being the equivalent of humans. And you get this, you know, when people are preoccupied with their pets and stuff, they often attribute certain types of human knowledge and decisions to the animal, which probably aren't true. You know, they'll say, oh, the cat knows when I'm upset, or the dog knows when blah, 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 blah. Or they'll say something to the cat or dog and they will assume that the animal understood it. We have a tendency as human beings to do this with a lot of the animals around us, to try and perceive them as being sort of equivalent to ourselves. And I guess this tendency to have animal-headed humanoids in fantasy, I think that's kind of related to this issue we have where we humanize our pets in terms of how we perceive them. Okay, so that's just a weird little off-thought there. It wasn't even part of my notes, just something I picked up on as we were heading in there. I like the entrance to this city because you don't just walk up and there's a straightforward gate. You have to go up and around through here, and it's like a big build-up, almost like a drum roll. Dun, 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 dun. It's coming. The gates of the city is coming. Dun, 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 dun.
What the dragon's about. Official business only.
Oh, bureaucracy at last.
You say,
I just want to say a little something about the fauna here as well in the game.
We'll be ready.
This game is full of you know, sort of medieval darkness. Everything's greys and browns in this game, mostly greys, and it gives the whole thing a sort of almost deathly, morbid type of feel. But at the same time, it seems like the people who made the game, they didn't want to go totally for a completely barren, apocalyptic style wasteland where there's no life at all. So we get various plants and things that have a bit of colour in them. And sometimes we get very colourful plants, but never anything that looks like a rainbow. Very rare in this game that you get rainbow colours, so you might get one splash of colour out of one or two colours like this. And I think the closest we ever get to rainbow colours in this game is if you ever find a flower garden with a whole bunch of flowers in one place. But exotic colours or exotic colour combinations like you would expect to find in a jungle with all kinds of fruit and flowers all in one place with a range of wild, beautiful colours. That is kept out of this game. That's quite interesting because that was also the case in Morrowind. Morrowind had a very sort of bland brown colour palette throughout most of the game from what I remember. And I'm not really sure exactly why that is. Why the lack of colour? I suppose vibrant colour makes things feel a bit too happy, and they don't want this to be a happy game. They want it to be a little bit threatening, a little bit dangerous, a little bit moody. And one way of doing that is to make sure that there aren't too many splashes of colour. And it's funny that in real life, the presence of strong splashes of colour can often mean danger. You know, we see certain types of poisonous creatures which have very bright red and yellow colours, or sometimes green, or there's certain poisonous frogs that have splashes of wild colour in them. It's funny that we tend to think of rainbow colours as something which involves dressing things up to seem really pretty and nice and childish. But in actual biology, in the wild, splashes of colour, it can come in the form of flowers, which is great beauty and attracts insects, but it can also be poisonous. Okay, so that's just a little off thought there. Let's head in here. And we're in. This is Whiterun.
We must have more swords for the Imperial soldiers.
I just can't fill an order that size on my own.
Now, being that we are in a civilized area of the world, we would expect that the people in this town would splash some colour around to make things look nice. Maybe paint the houses nice colours, have some nice flower displays in the gardens, but we don't get that. The game continues to go for the bland colour palette, even in a civilized area. And from what I remember, it's not very often in this game that the interiors of buildings involve splashes of great colour either. Let's check in this one, the Bannered Mare.
Come on
In the bar.
Let me know if you need anything, or take a seat by the fire.
So we have a little bit of colour in the carpet there. But again, greys and browns are the dominant colours. It's interesting about the colours thing. Some of the mods that I've played really spruce these places up and add all kinds of lovely colour in. I think it helps a lot. So I'm not really too fond of this thing, which gets done in a lot of movies and games these days, where there's a great attempt to make everything look moody by just having a really subdued colour palette and just sticking to greys and browns. And I thought there might have been a flower garden up here somewhere. No, that must have been from a modded version. Oh look, we got some flowers there. Yeah. However, there is one realm, if I remember rightly, where we do get a lot more colour by comparison. I think we're coming up to that. And that is magic realms in the game. So we got the Arcane Enchanter, which is a lot more colourful than most things in the game. I'm trying to... do you mind, woman? I'm trying to do a voiceover here. I'm trying to do a commentary on the game. Will you leave me alone? So Gerda sent me
My job
out.
is to deal with all dangers that threaten the Jarl or his people. So you have my attention. Now explain yourself.
Oh. Well, you see, I'm a real human being who can actually think and isn't programmed, and I think I can kick your ass eventually in this game. Alright then, so a dragon has destroyed Helgen. I was told to give the message directly to the Jarl. Wouldn't it be funny in life if every time we talk to people we just had options that showed up in our visual system here? Actually, it's similar to the Terminator. Remember, like, why isn't "fuck you arsehole" written as an option here? Oh well.
You know about
Okay, so a
Helgen?
dragon has destroyed
The
Helgen.
Jarl will want to speak to you personally. Approach.
So as I was saying, I mean, this isn't the greatest example here, but whenever things start to involve magic in this game, magic is where the colourfulness is. Everything else in the game is kept mostly greys and browns and pastel colours. But when it comes to magic, that's where the exotic colours come in terms of the spells that we cast, and in terms of the places that we go where magic is practiced. Like, there's a University of Magicka that we go to later in the game. Okay.
So, you were at Helgen. You saw this dragon with your own eyes?
No, I saw them with someone else's eyes. Right. The dragon destroyed Helgen, and I was lost. Had a great view while doing it. Okay, let's go for a
Irelet
second.
was right. What do you say now, Proventus? Shall we continue to trust in the strength of our walls against the dragon?
My lord, we should send troops to Riverwood at once. It's in the most immediate danger. If
The
that
Jarl of
dragon is
Falkland
Is it
lurking in the
now?
view
mountains.
that as a provocation. He'll
Hey,
assume
Ed,
we're
do you mind?
preparing
I'm trying to
turn
listen to
Ulfric's
her.
side and attack him. We should
Enough!
not.
I'll not stand idly by while the dragon burns my hold and slaughters my people. Irelet,
Well, you can't stand
send an
idly by if
detachment
you're
to
sitting down,
Riverwood
can
at
you?
once.
Yes, my Jarl.
If you'll excuse me, I'll return to my duties.
That would be best.
Well
Mr.
done.
Proventus, are you
Sought me
capable
out
of
on your
preventing
own
a
initiative.
dragon attack?
You've done Whiterun a service, and I won't forget it. Here, take this as a small token of my esteem. There is another
you.
thing you could do for me. Suitable
Oh,
for
but I
someone
haven't
of
agreed to
your
do the first thing yet.
particular talents, perhaps. Come, let's go find Farengar, my court wizard. He's been looking into a matter related to these dragons and rumors of dragons.
All you ever do is
Run rings around this guy. Okay.
Farengar, I think I found someone who can help you with your dragon project.
Go to Bleak Falls Barrow. Find this tablet, no doubt interred in the main chamber, and bring it to me. Simplicity itself.
Sounds pretty cool, but you do know I'm playing on legendary fucking level here, and I'm going to get slaughtered by that giant spider, which is in, what's it called, Bleak Falls Barrow. Okay, I'll probably get killed on my way to Bleak Falls Barrow. I'm going to have to level up somehow, aren't I, before I even attempt to go there.
Oh,
Are you
I
blind?
thought you were already on your way to Bleak Falls Barrow.
Must help me. We need
That's because you can't see a thing, because you've got that hood on. Right, okay.
another
Hey kid,
wanderer.
what's
Here
going
to lick
on?
My father's boots. Good job.
Hey, didn't I see you in Riverwood?
His judgment.
turn his thoughts to the war. You're his steward. You listen.
Another wanderer. Here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
Could be worse, I could be looking something else, couldn't I? Hey, you're quite strong, pushing me.
Another
Gav.
wanderer.
Whoa.
Here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
Are you a human or are you a doll with a cord in the back that I just pull and make you say that?
Another wanderer. Here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
Yeah, okay. Whee.
Ain't nobody high and mighty in these halls,
Ha!
except in the Jarl. And don't you forget.
I remember I was saying earlier about pretty much all the women in this are kind of hot. I mean, this one's meant to be old. She's got grey hair, hardly any wrinkles, and kind of an old woman's voice, but she's still got this sort of nice youngish face and a reasonable figure. So, Are there going to be any extremely unattractive women anywhere in the game? I'm sure there is somewhere. Oh, actually, the Hag Ravens, yeah, they weren't too attractive, were they? Right, okay, so we're out. Oh, and it's getting towards night time. Now, I need to... I'm going around the world and exploring things and just talking about stuff, but I'm not doing anything to progress myself here. I'm just doing the basic story mode elements. So I should really go and try and make some money. Have I got stuff I can sell? If I remember rightly, this guy's pretty sarcastic as well.
I work for Bellathor at the General Goods Store.
Is that this place by any chance?
Everything's for sale, my friend. Everything. If I had a sister, I'd sell her in a second.
Now, I usually wear armor in this game. I hardly ever just wear magicka robes and stuff. I've always been one for playing as characters who have a balance between physical fighting ability and magicka. I know some people play where they go for a full-on magicka role. I've never been one for doing that. I'm not sure why. But there you go.
Do your duty.
Of course. We'll keep Riverwood safe. You can count on it. Let's move out. Time's a wasting.
I love the way this... You know what? Accents in these games are so funny. I mean, it's like...
No lollygagging.
We have people in these games who have English accents. Even regional English accents. Like sometimes you get a Cockney sounding character, maybe not in this game, but in some of the others. But we've got those guards who all sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They all sound like, I don't know, German. So we tend to get, I mean, this is true in like the Star Wars universe as well. We get characters who have the different kind of accents that we have here on Earth, which to me kind of supports the notion that in this world, the different regions of the world are kind of representative of the regions on our own planet. And so all these different accents, you might get someone who pops up with an Irish accent. And so it's not really specified which part of this world, the map, I should say. Where's the map? I do always do that. It's not specified which regions on this map would actually correlate to any particular parts of our own world, you know, certain continents, countries, or whatever. But I think the general notion that the kind of cultural and national variety that we have here on Earth is kind of represented overall. There's a generalized notion that this world, in terms of its variety of humanoid characters and their accents and stuff, is basically equivalent to Earth. Yeah, so I'm going to go take a break. I'm off to bed, and I'm going to carry on with this playthrough at some point over the next few days. But I might just post everything I've done so far as a standalone part 1 of this video, rather than spending ages putting the whole thing together and having like a 4-hour video or whatever. Okay folks, see you later, bye bye.